So, I just got to watch my most anticipated movie of the year. I'm kidding. I did just watch Damsel, though, the brand new film on Netflix starring Millie Bobby Brown, which is about a damsel in distress who has to go and fight dragons or something. Okay, let's get into this one. This movie I actually like the marketing for. I thought its trailers were done very, very well. They really stressed the nature of this film being kind of Millie Bobby Brown fighting dragons or running away from dragons. These trailers kind of sold a video game-like concept that seemed interesting, and it's set in kind of this fantasy world. It looked like it was made with a very, very large budget, and that Netflix had put a lot of effort into marketing this film and making it something hopefully special and unique, starring this person who essentially was the biggest new star that Netflix has created in their history, obviously with Stranger Things. Now that I've seen the movie, it's weird. It's really weird. I don't even know how to talk about this, because it's a movie that I'm just gonna be honest, I didn't love, but there are aspects of this movie that are great, that are so great. First off, let me talk about the first act. I think this movie has a really well-made first act. This first act is great. The first act of this movie gave me so much nostalgia for some older, early 2000s sort of fantasy movies. Don't say Lord of the Rings, Joe. Don't say Lord of the Rings. It kind of gave me Lord of the Rings type vibes. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm not going to compare this movie to Lord of the Rings. I have a better one. Narnia. It reminded me of Narnia. No, not that Narnia. This Narnia. Actually, no, not that one either. How about this one? The one with Will Poulter. How about that one? That's kind of the one it reminded me of. The sort of old CGI-based fantasy movies. That's kind of what the first act gave me. It introduced this world that had some actual, really well-done cinematography. It felt very open. The music was very early 2000s-like. The acting, the costumes, the production design. It all felt like I was watching a movie from my childhood, which I enjoyed. I like getting that little bit of nostalgia thrown over me. I like feeling those emotions. It felt good. And there's a lot of good stuff early on in this movie. Specifically, Angela Bassett. She's not in a lot of this film, but when she's there, Angela Bassett's a star. And she does some work early in this film where she does some scenes that are very small and very simple. And I don't know if they're supposed to be very intricate to the plot, other than just informing you that some of these characters are not very good people. But Angela Bassett's performance in one scene was so heartbreaking. She does so much work with her eyes. Just her eyes and some slight facial expressions. That broke my heart, man. Angela Bassett's amazing. She should have won that Oscar, man. But in complimenting Angela Bassett, some of the performances here, they're not great. And like I said, I give the benefit of the doubt every single one of my videos because I don't want to trash on actors. Listen, some of the performances didn't work here, and I'm not even going to say names, but you know who I'm talking about. So some of the performances don't work amazingly here. But maybe it's because of the script. The script might not have been very good, and that might have been the problem here. But there are some performances in this movie that just felt so underdeveloped and so, basic and standard that I could not get into the characters at all. In fact, I was more detached from the characters than anything, and it kind of detached me from the movie, and I just could not get invested once the actual plot of the movie started. After that first act kind of ramps up and ends, obviously we get to the damsel in distress part, Millie Bobby Brown running from dragons and getting into the whole crux of the story and all that stuff, and I just could not get invested in it at all. In fact, I just got completely detached from the movie and almost just didn't finish it because I was so unengaged in what was actually happening. Although I will say some of the visual stuff, some of the CGI in the latter parts of the film does work. I actually like the look and the feel of the dragon. Sometimes the CGI is really bad and poorly done, but there's other times that the dragon looks really unique and different from anything that I've seen from movies that have big dragons in them. Obviously, they were going for kind of like Smaug vibe in The Hobbit. They were trying to go for this really unique visual thing that is different than something like Game of Thrones, and it does work a lot of the time. The dragons are very, they're large, but they're also not as big as you've seen in other movies. Their voices are very gnarly, and the sound design around their voices is kind of terrifying. The fire breath that the dragons have is really cool, kind of like Godzilla. When I say Godzilla, I mean the good Godzilla movies, not the shitty ones, but there's a very interesting vibe with that. The sound design around the dragons as a whole, just the sounds they make when they move, is very well done. So good work to all the special design people, the visual effects people. They did a really good job with the dragon stuff. I thought that was probably the best part of the movie outside of the first act. But outside of that, I don't know, man. The second and third half, the stakes and the tension of this movie never really work because you know Millie Bobby Brown's character is never in real danger. You know she's not going to die, so it takes away all of the stakes and all of the tension. The story is just never really interesting or engaging. It's very predictable, the direction that it ends up going, and it feels like a movie that was made for an audience that has never actually watched a movie like this, which it's hard to believe that they're still making movies like that because everybody has seen a movie like this. If you haven't, it means you're an infant. You were just born, all right? Everybody's seen a movie with a plot like this. It just doesn't really go anywhere fascinating or does anything challenging, and it tries to have this very central thematical message in it that's very surface level and very easily deciphered in literally the first 5 minutes of the film, so it doesn't actually work when it comes to revelation, like, oh, that's what they're trying to say. No, you know what they're trying to say in the first 5 minutes, so it never truly kind of resonates as a whole in this film. By the time you get to the ending, I just didn't find it very satisfying where the characters end up getting to. Because when you have a movie where you have characters that you're not engaged with, and it's to me, characters are the number one thing you need in any film. It's characters, then plot. Because if you don't have the characters, nobody will ever be interested in the plot. If your characters suck, why is the audience going to engage in the world or the situation or the stakes of the plot and the world? They're not. You need characters that are interesting to hook up on, or characters that at least you want to follow, you want to see where their story goes, even if they're not interesting. There's very boring characters. I think Luke Skywalker's a very boring character, but everybody loves him because his story is engaging and simple, and it's somebody that the audience can embody, they can see themselves in. Alright, this is a very boring character that just is not, you don't care. At least I didn't. I just did not care where this character was going for a multitude of reasons. The writing, some of the performance stuff with it, it's just, I could not get hooked into this outside of the first act. The first act I thought was interesting. It was very fantasy-like. It felt like Narnia. It felt like, it didn't feel like Lord of the Rings. I'm not going to say it again, but it felt like that kind of early 2000s nostalgic fantasy vibe that I loved, and then it just got into kind of the nonsense that we're used to in movies like this, especially from Netflix, with just how lazy a lot of their movies feel. There's also a line in this movie, I mean, there's a lot of really cringy lines in here. A lot of lines of dialogue that just don't work at all, but there's one that's hilarious where Millie Bobby Brown's fighting the dragon, and she's, like, gonna stab it, and the dragon's like, if you do that, it'll only make me angry. And Millie Bobby Brown's like, I am angry. And it felt like, and yet again, I don't know who's responsible for the way that line was delivered and how that came to be, but it feels like the director looked at her and said, Millie, we want you to just do Stranger Things. Let's just do 11. Just do 11. That's what we wanted of this movie. And action. I am angry. Dragon, not good friend. It's just dumb. I don't know, man. I'm so sick of watching bad movies, and all we've been getting this year, outside of Dune, has just been bad, and this is just killing my vibe, especially after December, November, October of last year felt like an onslaught of just 4 out of 5s, 5 out of 5s. Now it's been 3 months of 2s, 1s, 3s at best. Like, luckily we've gotten Dune, which is arguably the best movie of the decade, so, like, I guess it's a trade-off, but my god, man, this early year has been remarkably depressing to get through movie-wise, so hopefully it gets better. Hopefully it gets better, guys. I'll give Damsel, I guess, a 2 out of 5. I can't give it a 3, although I could see how some people would probably get a 3 out of this movie, and I can't give it any lower than a 2, because it's well made, and it had some decent parts in it. It's not unwatchable. It's just standard, forgettable, and something that I'm not going to watch again. That's the video, guys. Thanks for watching. Please make sure to like it, subscribe for more, and I will see you guys in the next one.